Oh, g'day there. I'm just popping in before we start today's epic podcast, which, by the way, I hope you can stick around for. But I just wanted to let you know that the doors to the Frequency Shift Mastermind are now open again. Yes, it is that time again. We kick off on April 2nd. And depending on when you're watching this or listening to this, the early bird pricing is now available as well too. It is only available for a limited time. So if you do know that you want to jump in and work together with a group of awesome like-minded humans bringing their biggest goals, dreams, and vision to life, get some serious shit done, reprogram your subconscious mind for your version of success, now is definitely the time. So hit the link in the description and that will take you to the page that will give you all the information that you need. And as always, if it does ring your bells and you do sign up, I cannot wait to work with you. And the second thing is I'm about to share an interview that I just did with the beautiful Mary Rodwell. It was an awesome episode. And at the end, I was asking a question that I wish I'd asked in the interview itself. And luckily enough, I hadn't stopped recording yet. So I will pop that in at the end of this interview so you can listen to that as well. So aside from that, thank you so much for being here as always. And now over to this episode.
Rock the Ripple. Rock the Ripple. Rock the Ripple. The Rock the Ripple podcast with Narita McInnes.
Let's do this. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rock the Ripple podcast. I'm your host, Narita McInnes. It is so awesome to be here with you as always. And today is another very exciting day because I have a very special guest with me. She is recognised internationally as one of Australia's leading researchers and writers in the UFO and contact phenomenon areas, an author of numerous highly acclaimed books, a producer of a number of award-winning documentaries, the founder and principal of ACERN, Australian Close Encounters Resource Network. I'm getting my words muddled. She's not only that, she is an incredible counsellor, researcher, hypnotherapist, metaphysical teacher, and international speaker. There is, of course, so much more to this incredible woman. Her name is Mary Rodwell. Mary, welcome to the show.
Narita, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so grateful to have you here. Now, there is just so much to you. So I think, as you would know at the start of any podcast, for those who may not know you or haven't come across your work before, can you give a bit of a rundown as to who is Mary Rodwell?
Well, a précis is the best I can do in the sense that I, was a former nurse midwife who got sidetracked into counselling to begin with in a medical practice and learning the counselling side, which became really very important because I was looking at healing not from a more proactive medical model, but more from a psychological, spiritual model, which is what, the counselling I got into. I came to Australia in 1991. I'll get it right in a minute. Where I carried on with the counselling rather than going back into nursing, because I was very committed to looking at health from a different perspective, and that really mattered to me. Working in grief and bereavement, and all of that was sparking interest in a bigger picture, the soul journey, if you like, because I'd always been interested in the weird and the wonderful right from a small child. If it was weird and wonderful, I wanted to know about it, you know what I mean? Anything from reincarnation to healing or whatever. So this continued my journey because people in hospice and people who are dying want to know what happens next, this kind of thing, which was my own journey too. How this led me into my present work, I often make a joke about the fact that if you'd told me 40 years ago as a nurse I'd be traveling the world talking about aliens, I'd have probably told you that there's good psychiatric hospitals around, because it was not in my framework whatsoever, although I was very open to all things. If somebody told me it was a possibility, I wouldn't dismiss it, but I had no particular focus on that whatsoever until, as I'm working in the field of counselling, I worked in Perth in centre care, pregnancy counselling, all this kind of thing. So I'd done a lot of what I call the human issues, that we have in every day that we go to counsellors for. But I got more and more intrigued with things to do with the afterlife, reincarnation, and I had a couple of past life regressions, which intrigued me. So I learned to do hypnosis myself and taking people into past lives, curing phobias, which was really fascinating, giving it real tangibility. But not only, but also finding out more interesting things about who and what a soul is and the possibilities of a soul. But what really got me into the ET side of things was a lovely gentleman who's a dear friend of mine now. I've known him, gosh, 30 years, I think now. And he came to my office and he said, Mary, I've heard you're open-minded. For this, there's no support groups. For this, they just think you're crazy. And told me about waking up with shaved areas on his body, going up on spacecraft, his partner having experiences, the children having experiences. People didn't want to come to the house because they thought it was demons and what have you. And he said, can you help? Fortunately and synchronously, I always find you're given a hand. Only a few weeks prior to that, I picked up 2 books on the weird and the wonderful. One was Dr. John Mack, Abduction, Human Encounters with Aliens. He was a Harvard professor of psychiatry. And that fascinated me because here was a very credible person saying this is real. And also the book Communion with Whitley Strieber, which is a classic with the ET face on the front. So there was the experiencer, there was the therapist. And so I'd read those, but the thing was, I thought it was very rare. And I never in a million years thought I would ever meet anyone who had these experiences until Ellis walked in the door. And from that, it opened up a whole new world. And it's all I've said to him many times, it's his fault that I've got a rabbit hole. I say he's become a dear friend. He's an author himself now, talked about his own experiences. But what that did was to tell me when he said his whole family was involved, this takes it out of hallucinations and schizophrenia, and it's all your imagination. Because if the whole family is having experiences, come on, guys, this is a whole new ball game. And the fact was, he was so credible. He was very grounded. There was nothing about him that suggested he had mental health problems whatsoever. And the difference when you're a counselor, because you're constantly assessing someone for are they balanced and coming from a healthy place psychologically. And he was. There was no question in my mind. So this started the journey. 3,500 people later, and families and children. I've got more than enough evidence to say this is absolutely real, and it's affecting people all over the planet. Doesn't matter their belief system, it doesn't matter what their culture is, doesn't matter what kind of work they do, because this isn't about belief, this is about experience. And there are many people that have come to me that haven't believed in aliens yet are having ET experiences. And that's the problem for them, because it wasn't something they believed in. So when they say, oh, well, you're a believer, you're not a believer unless you've actually had the experiences mostly, because that's what gives you that belief, because it's your experience. So in a nutshell, that was really how I got into this. And as I say, I blame Ellis absolutely for all of it.
Yeah, bloody Ellis.
He's a lovely guy, actually. He's a smashing chap.
Yeah, no, I bet he is. I bet he is. And obviously, this was the path that you were meant to take. And to have worked with over 3,500 people who have had these experiences, you can't, and I've often talked about this in other episodes with other people, like when you have an experience yourself, it's a knowing, and it might sound far out to someone else, but like you just pointed out there too, with the fact that with Ellis and his whole family having these experiences, it takes it away from that anything that's mental health or putting it on the person, doesn't it?
I think that I'm been on the ground. Interestingly, after Ellis, within 2 weeks, another lady walked through the door that was having these experiences. With a social worker that was having experiences. We started up in Perth, the very first abduction support group, and 12 people turned up. I mean, this is what I mean and this is supposed to be rare. And then I realized that a lot of people are having experiences, but they don't actually realize what it is they're experiencing because they've got nothing to test it against. So they just think they're a little bit weird, or there is something wrong with them. And I've known many people that have believed that they've had something psychologically wrong. And in my book Awakening, I actually do a case study of a 19-year-old girl, Lee, who rang me and said, I think I'm having these experiences. She said, when I was 14, I told the doctor that I was seeing aliens, and he told me that I had a mental illness and medicated her for schizophrenia. She actually tried to take her life a few times because the medication was so affected her so badly. And she said, and I saw this talk show on television from America where people were talking about their experiences. And she said, and I finally realized that actually this was real. And that was how she came to me, from watching a talk show of all things. And from that, she went through a whole range of emotions because she was still uncertain about, is this really real or whatever? And I worked with her and told her story. But it was a process of realizing that for all those years she'd been medicated when she shouldn't have been, that it's because the doctor didn't know, through ignorance, obviously. And I put this squarely on the truth embargo, because we know that the governments know this is real, but that they've never ever owned up the fact that there are millions of people out there, and I believe there's millions that have these experiences, even if they're not sure or interpret it through a different lens. They may, for example, if you're very religious and you see a light being, you might call it an angel, for example. Whereas if you're not religious, you'd call it a light being. So, and others, if they see a grey, if they're religious, they may think it's a demon rather than, it's a zeta or it's a grey being or whatever. So a lot depends on your perspective in terms of your cultural beliefs, and which will influence the way you interpret it. And many intuitives, the clairvoyants, the mediums, the spiritualists, and what have you, many of them are fine with angels and fairies and spirit guides, but they get very uncomfortable if you talk about, a grey being or a mantis being or any other of these, lion beings or whatever, because to them, that's not spiritual. That's something, in fact, is all spiritual, and it's all in the same package. It's just that it's separated out because we put things in boxes rather than realize it's all part of consciousness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And do you find as well with your work, well, I know that you work with a lot of children as well, and perhaps the parents may not be aware of this sort of thing, but the children are. Do you find that sort of brings in another bit of trickiness, I suppose, with this sort of thing?
Well, that's been one of the things that, parents that have contacted me about their children talking about being taught things at night, going with a special friend to a spacecraft and learning things. And these are, 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds. And the parents have said, I've never mentioned anything to do with this subject. I never talk about any of this. So for me, it's really quite scary. And what was interesting with one lady was she only found out that she was having experiences when she was exploring something to do with her childhood. And when she was exploring this issue on her childhood, she suddenly found herself on a spacecraft, completely out of the blue, and realizing that she'd had extraterrestrial experiences as well. And that was enough for her to try and deal with, except for within a few weeks, her daughter said to me, "You're not my real mom. My real mother, my mother's up in space." And she said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, I go there." And she said, and the mother said, "Well, what does your other mother look like?" She says, "I can't show you because you'd be scared." And obviously her daughter was having experiences as well. If she hadn't had her own awakening, if you like, a few weeks prior to that, she wouldn't have known what to make of it. But she then realized, because we now know that this is an intergenerational link to experiences, that if you have experiences, often one or both of your parents, grandparents may very well be involved, even if they didn't know it. And one of the clues was always, I'd say, did your grandparents ever mention anything about, unusual things or talk about unusual things? And they may say, "Oh, well, Granddad always talked about UFOs," or Nan was always very psychic and a bit weird or whatever. And there you're isolating, although they may not have known fully their part in it consciously. Subconsciously, there is still that awareness and interest and desire to explore something that on some level resonates with them or whatever. So the children, though, are different in the sense that many of the new ones, when I wrote about the new human, I was talking about the new generations of human that are born a lot more awake and a lot more aware of their origins, and will talk about it quite, coming from other planets, coming with a mission and a purpose, talking about some of their abilities, from telepathy, able to communicate with animals, to, as I say, their mission. They will talk about seeing energy around you. They'll talk about seeing orbs of light or their special friend. So there's a whole range of awareness that, unless you're a parent that knows about this, you may think, oh, she's got a great imagination or whatever. But some of the things they talk about are so complex that the parents don't know what to do with it. So that often they'll say to me, my son is saying this, this, and this. And I have a questionnaire for children for that very reason, because there's some things the child thinks is normal, but the parents don't know about, but they're seeing or experiencing something the parents are not even aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember in one of your other interviews, you were talking about a young child, and I don't know if this is across the board, but he or she wasn't speaking because she was using telepathy anyway. And then you also linked it perhaps to autism or ADHD or something around that. Do you want to speak a bit about that? Because I found that very fascinating.
Well, what has been interesting in the journey of connecting the dots for me, or at least trying to understand what's going on from the many testimonies and interviews and work that I do, is I wondered why many of those that were having experiences, the adults that is, talked about their children having experiences, but also being labeled ADHD or autistic in some way on the spectrum, Asperger's, dyslexia, or whatever. And I kept thinking to myself, well, how is that connected? Because I know it was going down that intergenerational link to the children. The children were having experiences. So why are they also being given these labels that often mention, suggest a dysfunction? And it didn't quite make any sense until I realized some very crucial points. With ADHD, with autism and all of that, they have a different awareness. And we see that as abnormal. But actually, for them, it's normal. For example, to give you an example of that for ADHD, there's a gentleman in Hong Kong, Neil Gold, that told me he had interactions with the light beings. He said, I wasn't until I was 50 that I realized that I would have been labeled as ADHD, he said, because I saw far more of the matrix, far more of our complex multidimensional reality. And he said, and I didn't understand why I was different or whatever until I realized that I was seeing so much more than other people. And he retranslated his ADHD as always dialed into higher dimensions, and wrote Close Encounters of the ADHD Kind. And that was a very big clue, because I realized that all these so-called labels have certain abilities that are not considered the norm, but actually could very much be related to a higher form of awareness. And one of the things we know with ADHD, the only way we can program them or educate them is to dumb them down, basically through medication is the usual option. What we're really doing is we're programming, and I think these intelligences know this, and what they're wanting to do is to stop this transfer of a limited and limiting 3D reality so that they can actually manifest their full awareness and not be dumbed down. And what we do is we dumb down, we say, unless you've got the five senses, that's all you've got. Nothing else is valid, nothing else is real. Forget intuition, forget your knowing, your sensing, your feeling. That's just imagination. That's the only things that you can actually trust. Well, if that's the program, and most of us in the Western world have that programming that you can't trust anything other than these five senses. It's got to be real, it's got to be 3D. What they're really doing is telling us to dismiss our multidimensional selves and dismiss all that knowing, that sensing, that feeling, that intuition, that gut feeling, all those kinds of things that we know can be 100% accurate, but we don't trust them because we think, oh, maybe I'm just imagining it, or and that's programming, and it's coming from our education, our science, our religion, all those different things that put us in the box. So if you've got an awareness that's on a higher frequency, like ADHD, the only way you can program that is to shut it down so
Mm.
that then they can be programmed into the system,
Yeah.
which is the limited and limiting 3D reality. And that's why, you know, the medication works, because it lowers their threshold so they can be programmed. And if you know, carry that forward with everything else, it's all about us fitting into a certain 3D box. Whereas these new generations of human, they're coming in from a multidimensional angle and they don't fit into that box. And so they're considered as dysfunctional. In the book, The New Human, where I talk about some of their stories, as well as what do you do, how do you help someone with ADHD balance? And Dr. Lena Olson, a molecular biologist who's had this label, and others, has found that if you give them more certain minerals and vitamins like choline and what have you, you can stabilize the person who has ADHD and you don't have to look at medication. So it's not just talking about a new perspective on this, but how do you manage it so it's healthy and in line with a more holistic approach. And what's fascinating for me, even though I know my book was a bit out there for a lot of people, I've had clinical psychologists, educators, as well as parents contact me because they've resonated to that kind of information, because many of them know there's something more going on here and we're missing everything. It's like the autistic girl. I quote this many times. One of the autistic girls was asked, why do you never look anyone in the eye? And she was asked, you know, you always look down or you look away. And she said, because I see 10,000 images in one go if I look at you in the eye. So what is this autistic child actually? What is their reality? How do they understand their reality? How do they operate? And this is what I think has been missing, is we've not gone into, we're just saying, oh, they're dysfunctional, they can't fit into the 3D box. So we need to just make sure they do one way or another. And so we try and fit that person in. But these many of them are telepathic. I remember one mother telling me that her daughter, from a baby, was telepathic, and tuned into everyone around her. And she said she's now 3 years old, and she said it's getting very tiring keeping my thoughts away from my daughter, especially when I'm feeling a bit negative one day. You know, so what they're doing is forcing us to come from a higher perspective and to clean up our thoughts and our thinking and keep them positive and loving and caring, because that's the only way we're getting to a higher frequency of consciousness, is to actually start looking at the way, not only way we behave, but the way we think.
Mm. Absolutely. I love that you said that, because when we consciously create, and it's our thoughts that start it. And so having these children that are able to do that and to be able to tap into that, I mean, I guess they're sort of, their dimensions are more open, they're multi-dimensionality. I can't speak, but you know what I mean. It's like their lens is just so much bigger than what we've got, and the frequencies that they're tapping into. Is that sort of what you feel, that they're just able to see and feel more than that some of us are? I mean, I feel like they're also here to help us raise in our frequency as well too. What do you think about that?
Oh, there's no doubt when you
Mm.
talk to them, and even the parents are surprised at what they come out with, because I've got an adult questionnaire, but I've got one for children where it says, do you see balls of light? Do you see colors around people, for example? Do you see beings, or do you see presences, or do you feel energy, for example? You know, do you feel that you're not from here? All these kinds of questions that the parents won't even think of asking, but the child, it's, well, this is my norm. Until and don't even think to mention it, because they think everybody's the same. So that, the parents say, oh, I didn't know my daughter was doing this. I remember one very aware lady with a daughter of 8 who said that she was a hybrid, and the mother asked her about, and these were things that the mother hadn't realized. She said she comes from a water planet, and she's part water being, part human. And she said when she looks in the mirror, she's actually seeing a water being self.
Wow.
She explained with her awareness what she could pick up on. And she said, with music, I not only hear the music, I go on the frequency of that music to where the person, actually created the music, and their emotions and their feelings that went with the music. So she's taken it to a whole new level. And the mother had no idea. that this is what her daughter was able to do, because parents don't often know the questions to even ask because it may not be part of their reality. Another little girl talked about colors coming out of her mother's mouth with different emotions. So she was picking up on the frequency of those emotions that were coming out from her mother's mouth. Now, it's not something you think to ask a child, is it?
Yeah.
Because you expect they're seeing the same reality as you, but they may in fact be seeing a far broader, complex reality. And I remember one 8-year-old who came to this office actually telling me that he communicates with animals, and his mission on this planet is to help people understand and be respectful of animals as you connect with them, even if you don't understand, have the communication that he had, for example. So these are things that, again, the parents don't blown away when their child comes out with something like that and they don't know what to do with it. They'll say, what do I do? How do I manage this? And I'm saying, well, the primary thing is to be open to listening. And it's important. Just because it's not your experience doesn't mean it's not valid. Because the child, many of them are, I remember a little video of a 6-year-old holding a meteorite, and he's telling his mum what the meteorite is saying to him. And he's explaining the meteorite, said where it landed, how it come to be with him. And she says, well, how do you know what it's saying? He says, it's all in my mind. It comes into my mind. So we've got to be open to understanding that we're still only seeing a very limited perspective when it comes to reality. I mean, our eyes only see a very small visual spectrum. A lot of these children have enhanced sight, so they see more of the visual spectrum, more sensitivity to touch, more sensitivity to hearing, and also emotions. Often 5 times the norm. That's just the physical. That's without their awareness of, as one young man of 10, I think it was, he was explaining, he comes from a planet, he's blue. And he said he's come to this planet. It's his first incarnation. His mum, he said he picked because she had many incarnations on this planet. And it also explained that he was a center seed, which meant he connects to the center of the planet. He's going to help with the pollution on this planet. That's part of his mission. That's part of his role to play. So that, when you give them the chance to explain how they understand things and listen openly without the judgment of, well, that's something I don't understand, then you find out just what really is going on in your child's mind. And the reason many of them don't fit into standard schools, because they're different, and they often are bullied because they're different, because they're highly sensitive as well. And that's another issue many parents have is, my child's not managing school. He or she gets really bullied because they're very sensitive. They may very well be healers and empaths, and they're picking up on everybody's emotions. The average child doesn't know that, other than they are a bit strange or a bit different. And that's often why, children are the way they are. If it's strange and different, they don't like it, or they'll, make a fuss about it or whatever. So often they really struggle in school as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it'll be so hard for them to navigate that coming in at this time. And you also spoke about children remembering, their past lives or their mothers and things like that. I've got a dear friend who her son once said to her, you know why I picked you, Mum? Because you had a beautiful smile, and just could remember these things. And, for her, it was a little bit far out, but at the same time, she was open enough to hear the conversation. And, I think that's just perfect. I mean, if we can just be open and listen and hear, and just because we haven't heard of something before, just receive what's there and then sort of take the next steps, and obviously connect with someone like you if it's pretty far out. But being able to really respect and honor the children that are coming through and with these gifts and abilities, because I really do feel that they are going to be, or are already, our biggest teachers, aren't they?
Well, this is, the big thing is, how do I help the child that is that aware? And it really is just primarily honoring their experience and how they talk about it. Often the skeptic will say, how do you know they're not making it up, and all the rest of it. And a parent, a mother knows very well when a child is making something up, or whether it's coming from an integral awareness or an understanding. And the other thing is that most of them will say they've never mentioned any of these kinds of topics at all to the child. And you don't get this kind of material, you know, in any kind of cartoon or whatever, where they would pick it up and what have you. I always remember many years ago, one of the anecdotes was a young boy who his mother was showing him pictures of the pyramids and, you know, the slaves hauling the big stones up and what have you. And he got very agitated and very cross. And he said to her, "That's not what happened. That's not true, because I was there." And he said, and they changed the density structure of objects large and small and levitated them into place. Now, there you have it. You know, this is a 5-year-old, not only tapping into a past life, but actually saying how it happened, for example. I mean, what do you do with that? Other than say, this is a truth, and maybe it would be helpful to at least be open to it. I mean, whether or not you struggle to believe that, I mean, there's lots of things initially I think I struggled to believe to start with, when I realized how little I know about true nature of reality. And the more you know, the less you know. It's like, you know, it's like, and you don't know what you don't know. So, you know, all I can say now is I can't say anything is not perhaps true. It's just that I've not come across it. And if I get something that challenges me, and I'll say that to all your listeners, if you get something that challenges you, don't dismiss it, but put it in a little box and wait till some more information comes and either verifies it or not. Because there have been things that I would have struggled with, you know, 20, 30 years ago that now are not a problem. You can take, you know, I can go into parallel lives or parallel realities, timelines, vortexes, portals, or you name it, and it's not a problem. You know, it's like, yeah, clones, yeah, right, okay, not a problem. You know what I mean? It's sort of, but it's taken a long time to slowly allow that expansion of understanding that we just know so little about what is the truth. And we are also educated into a very inaccurate reality, which is what we're taught to believe is the only reality. So it's a matter of just feeling the resonance more than anything. If that in some way does resonate, there's a reason for that. And that's why we have that feeling inside ourselves. Sometimes we can't qualify it. It's like your own experiences. Sometimes you think, well, did that really happen? Was it real? But there's a knowing with that. There's a sense it's right. Listen to that, because that's part of you tapping into the truth. And that's what we give our power away a lot of the time, because we'd rather believe someone with a piece of paper that says I'm clever, rather than, do you know what I mean? And I'm obviously more clever than you know, PhD in some whatever, and I know more than you. And we give our power away to so many of the so-called experts, even spiritual gurus, where without really our own self is our own guru. And we have to start listening to that, I believe, because that's the ultimate guru, is yourself.
Yeah, could not agree more with that. Absolutely love that you said that. Everything begins within, doesn't it? And that's where we start, when we learn to trust ourselves more and rely on ourselves more. And like you said, not look outside for the person with the piece of paper, but learn from ourselves. And I love what you said as well too. Like, if something sounds a bit out there, don't dismiss it. Just put it in that box and let more information come in, because I totally agree. Sometimes things do, you think, far out, that's a new one for me. I'm going to have to park that and wait till I get a bit more information about that to see how I feel about that thing. But again, like you said as well too, the more we know, the more we realize we don't know. And if we can be open to the fact that there's so much we don't know, then we allow ourselves to get more information to come in. And then I guess trust the timing as well for things to come in, because like you said before too, like, things will come in at the right time. Things will come in when they need to, and then you can do with it what you need to do with it then. I think you also said that in another interview too. You talked about how, you know, a lot of us might come here with a mission or a vision or a purpose, and we might not know it yet, but when we have to trust that our soul will ignite that when we have that switched on to do that thing. Do you want to talk a bit more about that? Actually, that was pretty cool.
I get many beautiful souls that come to me, and many of them are very aware, very switched on, and very much in tune with things. And they'll say to me, I just want to find out what my main mission is, because I don't know whether I'm, if I'm doing the right things or whatever. And some will come and say, I just knew I had to come and see you, but I've got no idea why I'm here, and I'm saying it's one of those, is it? I've got to do the mystery thing. And it tickles me when they say that. And I'd say, well, you're already on your mission, for starters. And I said, because your soul isn't going to let you miss the bus. Ultimately, when the time comes, it will expand and open up for you, but it's all about timing. And what I mean by that is that we have different paths that we're treading. We've got the soul doing its own mission about gaining greater understanding, but also perhaps having a purpose to help this planet and help humanity grow and achieve a higher consciousness or whatever. And although you may feel that you're doing not very much, you don't know what you're doing on other levels. For example, you may very well every night be going out and doing a lot of spiritual work on those other realms. And I'll say, and if you're waking up exhausted, that's probably because you've been busy.
Yeah.
So many people say, but I woke up, I had a 12-hour sleep and I still woke up, absolutely knackered. And I'm saying, yeah, because you were probably off somewhere, helping out on various levels. So it's not just about the doing. And actually sometimes just the being who you are with the frequency that you have, that is actually assisting others, because we are sharing those frequencies wherever we go, and by the very language that we use. And many people are having what I call the downloads from those other realms, whether or not it's star language, whether or not it's symbols and scripts, whether or not it's music, whether or not it's artwork. All of those are frequencies that are coming to the planet to assist with the activation of the numerous types of humans that are coming into this planet that are waking up. And my understanding is that we have souls coming from all over the galaxies, the multiverse, both this dimension and other dimensions. And when people say, well, what is it that the different types of beings that we're talking about here, we're not just talking about physical extraterrestrials here, we're talking about interdimensionals, extra-dimensionals, transdimensionals, and beings from our future, and probably more that I don't know about. So we're talking about all these different frequencies of intelligences, and a lot of the ones that have volunteered to come to this planet to help will come not only from this particular reality, but other dimensions as well. As one 10-year-old said, he came through a portal in the sun. That was his understanding. Another artist I wrote about in my book, The New Human, said that he came from another dimension, and his artwork was meant to trigger awareness by just merely viewing it. It had a frequency that would actually trigger more openness to the greater reality. For example, some of the music that is being tuned into by our musicians that are experiencers are bringing in the frequencies through their music that is activating. And I'm sure many of you have listened to certain music and all the hairs stand up on your shoulder, where another bit of music has absolutely no effect on you. Why do you think that is? It's because you're resonating to a certain frequency in that. And what I love when I talk about the new kids is when we look at these talent shows that are on telly. There's, they have all these different talent shows where you've got this 10-year-old or 11-year-old singing like a mature 30-year-old, and you're thinking, how can they possibly bring in that kind of volume and that kind of incredible voice at 10 or 11? They're the starseeds. They're coming in, and that's their frequency. They're bringing it to you, and that's why you get, all your hairs stand up on your arms and you buzz and what have you. It's because you're resonating to that frequency, and that's their job. So it's coming in all these activation codes and what have you, are coming in the frequencies of people that have souls that have incarnated into human form from other places, in other galaxies and other dimensions, plus the fact that we're sharing it with one another by being truthful with ourselves. And this is the big one that many struggle with, because they've had to fit in and play the game. And it's now the time of real disclosure, is disclosure of being honest about who you are and what you are, because so many say, I don't meet anyone like me. I'm here, I feel so isolated, I feel so alone, I can't talk about it because nobody believes me or thinks I'm crazy or whatever. And one of the questions I ask them is, have you accepted it in yourself?
Mm.
And they will say, not sure. And I said, when you fully accept you, then you'll find you'll suddenly meet up with all these people that are on the same frequency as you. But while you're still in conflict about what's going on for you and whatever, and afraid of it or whatever, I said, you're not giving out the frequency that will bring the tribe, your own star tribe, to you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that you said that, Mary. I just love that you said that, because that is true on all levels, all levels. When we accept ourselves, whether we have connection that we feel with star family or not, but when we know who we are and we stand in our power and we love who we are, we attract the right people into our sphere, don't we? Because we're resonating at the truth frequency of us.
Yes.
Yeah. And I often say too, like, to your point about emanating frequencies and just being, like you said, you might be busy in the astral realm doing stuff at night, but also when you're going to the supermarket and you're walking down the aisles, like your frequency, you don't know who you're hitting and how far that ripple is spreading, do you?
That's right. We all think it's got to be something magnificent that we've got to be doing, healing all these people or informing all these other people. That will be perhaps part of the mandate down the track, because when people wake up, they're going to need people that have assimilated this, that are comfortable with it, that can help them through the journey. But at the moment, we're still in a crossroads of, many people not quite there yet, not quite waking up to their true origin and who they are. So we have to go with the flow of what is right now and be in the moment, because we don't know when it'll all change. And there's certainly evidence that it's going to happen, and it's going to happen very fast. Then your awareness is going to be, and your mission is going to become even more obvious to you. But in the meantime, we're holding the space. That's the job. We're holding the space for this to happen.
And what's your sense? Because of course we don't know for sure, but how long do you think we've got? Like, will we see it in our lifetimes, the big wave that just, I know it's sped up so much. It's sped up so much in this last few years, especially, but what do you see happening around that?
Well, there's a couple of things really. When people say, oh yes, well we know there's these new waves of children, whether you call them indigos, crystals, rainbow children, children of light, they've all got different energies and different missions and what have you. And when's this all going to happen? There's a real sense from many, many of those that are tapping into that it's sooner rather than later. That there's something going to happen. It's more imminent than maybe we realize. And there's a sense of anticipation as well as anxiety. It's sort of a mix of both, excitement or whatever. When people say to me, well, is it going to happen in our lifetime? Well, I don't think, given all of those that are coming in right now and have been coming in probably for the last 100 years in more and more numbers and whatever, I can't see that that's not going to happen in our lifetime. Because there's too many now coming in with this awareness and what have you. And on a personal note, I would be very pissed off if just doing all of this and I don't see the finale. I am going, and I know that if they'd said to me, Mary, before you go, oh, by the way, you're not going to be there for the final thing, you're just going to do your job, and I'll be saying, no, not doing that. No, not what you promised me. I'm going to see the cavalry. So for me, that's my own personal thing. But the reality is, without doubt, I am getting more and more numbers of people waking up from all ages that are wanting to know more about their journey, their soul journey, their connection to these beings, why they've had these experiences all their lives. And they might be 60 when they start questioning. They might even be 70 or whatever. But why are they wanting to know now? Why is everyone wanting to know about their experiences now? Why am I so busy, helping them connect the dots? It's because it's important, because it's now very present. Otherwise, they would not be bothered to find out. Sometimes their experience might be when they're 5 or 11, and they might be 60 before they say, oh, I've got to find out now. So why now? So I think it's all about timing, and the timing seems to be very crucial in terms of this wake-up call. And some had it in 2012. Some of them had it over this whole COVID thing that's been going on, and another activation or whatever. So I think there's something very imminent and everybody's feeling it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm so with you. I'd be pretty pissed too. We're going to see the show, Mary. We are going to see the
Oh,
show.
look, otherwise I wouldn't have bothered. I'd say no, find some other one to do it, because I'm Aries and I'm very impatient. Everything should have happened yesterday anyway.
Yes.
So
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. What are you finding most exciting in your work right now? What's the thing that you're sinking your teeth into most, or just really loving?
I think what I'm finding now more and more is that the more those that have a lot more of their a memory of their contact from what different types of intelligences they're working with, understanding their role on this planet, understanding who they really are, but also often a past life connection, which I've found more and more fascinating, is to say that many of them have come in prior to this in a different era where they somehow or other hadn't managed to achieve what they wanted to achieve. So they've reincarnated now. And there's many stories like that they've been prevented from doing what they should have been doing or should have achieved. It's like it's a culmination of, this is the time now, we're going to do it. And that's very exciting. And one of the stories is about the many arcs that are around the planet. And I don't know whether your listenership know about that, but I talked about the past life connection, where there seems to be these huge craft buried all over the planet, that are sentient, that are now being activated by consciousness. And they are part of, I think, maybe this event that's going to occur. And we've got them in Australia. We've got them obviously there's one apparently in Mount Fuji in Japan. There's Bermuda Triangle, Romania, Ukraine. There's a lot of places around Egypt, Iraq, lots of places where and my investigation is into what is that? What do we know about it? And there's been whistleblowers, but my own personal story around that was a young woman who had been on a craft with her friends, recognizing them, thought it was a dream. The next day they all rang her up and said, we had this dream, we were on a spaceship together. So they remembered that and realized it wasn't a dream. But when we did the regression, she went back to Atlantis, where they were all light workers, and they had a mission that failed, and they've come this time to actually complete the mission. And then I find out that she knows about the arcs, the special plants that are going to be brought to humanity for healing and what have you, new technologies. This is what's exciting, is what our future is, because our future is so different to the dark one we're being shown. There we're going to have healing technologies made available. We're going to have a real understanding of, things like free energy. The whole way that we operate is going to be different. And that's what excites me, is the future for ourselves, but primarily for our children and grandchildren. It is not going to be the future that is, put out there. It's going to be a completely different one. And that's what excites me, because that's why I'm here, I believe.
Absolutely. When you're saying that, I can so feel that. I feel it so much, and it gets me thinking about the powers that were, and because we are creator beings and we are able to manifest and all that sort of stuff. You can see all the fear and the things that have been trying to be played going on. And it's almost laughable, isn't it? Because it's just, the game is just, it's so one, but we're still in that process, aren't we?
Yeah. I think the most important thing that people need to realize, I think more than anything, is this is us learning about making choices from the heart of what we want for our future, and not letting all this other data out there that's trying to play on your fears all the time. And it's about us transcending our fears and transcending ego to get to a point where we are all one with each other, and we're all part of each other. And once we realize that, then none of that can manifest.
Yeah, it's so exciting, isn't it? It's just such an exciting time. I feel like people might say, can you tell me a bit more about the arcs? Are they cloaked at the moment, or are people seeing them? Like, for people who might be listening, they might just want to know a little bit more about that.
Well, I did a presentation for Portal to Ascension around the arcs and the past life. What it was that told me about the arcs was when doing the regression, the lady then talked about seeing these arcs. And I knew nothing about them until Dr. Michael Sala was interviewing a whistleblower, military whistleblower, JB, who actually has been on the arcs. And apparently they've been there for many millennia. And they are higher technology. They are sentient. The crafts themselves are sentient. They will only allow in the right consciousness to go in there. There are pilots being, this was from a remote viewer that was part of this lady's group as well, that saw it as well as she did. There are pilots being grown to manage the craft. So it's happening now. And there are huge beings in stasis to obviously be part of whatever happens. These are all being activated through consciousness, and they've been there for millennia waiting for us to reach a certain stage in awareness. And there's a lot more to this, because I discovered then that there were places all around the planet where this technology was there waiting for the right time, which is when we're ready as a conscious species to use it, with the right energies, if you like, and the right motivation. And this is what is so exciting, is that they are all over the planet waiting for that shift. And what's interesting is that there's a lot of different information about one place in Romania where there's a Sphinx, and underneath the Sphinx they found this huge cavern that you could only enter if you had the right consciousness, which had all this higher technology from our ancient past. And underneath it is a huge pyramid, bigger than the Pyramid of Giza, and a craft underneath that. Wow. With these beings in. That's just the one in Romania. And there's a book called Transylvania Sunrise by Peter Moon that tells you about, there's about 8 books now, but there's also being one again in Egypt, Iraq. That's why they went into Iraq, by the way, in 2003, was weapons of mass destruction. Actually, it was because Saddam Hussein actually had awareness of one of these technologies. And that's why the Baghdad Museum was raided, by the way. Anyone can look into that. It's because they were looking for the ancient technology, because the military obviously know about it. So there's a lot more of the conspiratorial side in there. But what it seems to be is that these arcs were placed there for the time when humanity was ready, when we are waking up to utilize this in the right manner for humanity.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, because we're such powerful beings and we need to come from the right intent when we're doing, because that is what we create. We manifest. So we have to come from that right place. So knowing that with our consciousness, and that just resonates so much, because and I just, oh my gosh, I could pick your brain all day long, Mary, because the stories that you would have heard and the experiences that you would have felt through other people is just phenomenal, just phenomenal. And I know I'm mindful of the time as well. So is there anything else on your heart that you would love to share before we start to wrap up?
Well, I'd just like to say to people that are still a little bit afraid of what's going on with themselves, and many people are fearful about their experience, afraid to look into it or whatever, that actually there's a part of you that needs to know if you want to connect the dots. And it may not be anything that you've feared at all. It may just give you more understanding of who you are, what you are, and why you're here. So don't be afraid to explore whatever it is that's maybe happened that you haven't had greater understanding, because it may be exactly what you need. As many of those that come to me, quite fearful sometimes of what they're going to find out, and they end up going out floating on a cloud because they finally understood who and what they are, and that this is all okay. So trust yourself, and when it's time, follow your heart.
I love that. I love that, Mary. Thank you so much for being on today. How can people find you, get your books, connect with you, all that sort of stuff, and perhaps experiences, make appointments with you?
Well, I'm on, obviously, you just need to go onto Google or Safari or whatever and Google my name or whatever. But ACERN.com.au is my website, and maryrodwell.com, all of those as well. I'm on Facebook, so you can message me there. I'm on Telegram as well. Books, if you're in Australia, I can actually send you direct and sign them for you. So if you're Australia or New Zealand, anywhere else it's too expensive, so you're going to have to go through a different outlet. It just makes it too expensive for you.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, you can email me, get the questionnaire, and if you want to explore your experiences through hypnosis or open yourself up to your more multidimensional self, I can give you tools to help you do that as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mary, for being on today. And I also want to thank you at home. Thank you so much for tuning in today and being part of this conversation with Mary and I. I hope you have loved it as much as I have, and I hope Mary has as well too. As always, if you liked this video, this episode, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, give it a rating if you're listening on the podcast. I always appreciate hearing from you and so grateful that you're here. But again, Mary, just thank you so, so much for your time today and sharing your wisdom and your insights with us all. I so appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for inviting me.
There was one thing I wish I'd asked you. You said, and it was in the Journey to Truth one I re-listened to just recently. I had them on the show last week, and they're just awesome. And you were talking about how, yeah, you went into a crowd. You're speaking at an event, and your energy was being felt. You had an experience. I can't. You know what I'm
Yes.
talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I have a chat with my team, and they were saying, Mary, because that's right. I started out saying, look, I get all these images of scripts, language, and artwork and what have you, and I can only show a minute amount of them to the public in presentations. I haven't got the hours that I would need to present all of them. So what am I supposed to do with them? How can I? It seems a waste that I can't, give people more and more of that. And they said, but everything that you view, Mary, everything that you're sent is basically on your energetic hard drive. And whenever you go anywhere, people will pick up that information from you, including the way your frequency of your voice. I mean, I was saying, oh, that sounds a bit sort of far-fetched to me, because I give them a hard time. Always they got to prove it to me. I said, you're going to have to prove that one for me to believe it, And it was proved within a space of a week, really, because I was speaking at a conscious living expo in Perth, and I was on a panel. I was actually sitting relatively quietly. Somebody was speaking, and a woman stood up, who actually I know, and she stood up and said, Mary, I've got to say this. She said, you're sitting there and you're not really saying very much at the moment, but you're beaming out all these frequencies to the audience. And I was gobsmacked. It was like, so, okay, I get it now. I get it. But what I realized was that we all do that. Every one of us that has got those frequencies that are seeing and opening up to the multiverse and what have you. Wherever we go, we're carrying them with us. We've all got those hard drives, those energetic hard drives that are, when somebody's ready to be awakened, we're activating without even realizing it. Wherever we go, we're doing that. And that's really what they were saying, is it's not unique to me, but it's actually part of what we're all doing as we come in and we open up. But that was my proof, because they know if they give me something a bit outrageous, or I think it's outrageous at the time, oh, come on, give us a break,
Yeah.
Prove it.
Yeah.
And they always do.
Yeah. Oh, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. I was still recording, so maybe I could just tack that bit on the end.